The time is now 6:08 p.m. It is Monday, June 15th, 2020. I'm calling to order a regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of Goose Creek Consolidated Independent School District. Secretary Poppy, Secretary Sampson. Secretary Sampson, are you on the call? Okay, sir.
Yes.
Do we have a quorum?
As far as I can see.
And was this meeting properly posted?
Yes, it was.
Okay, so according to OMA laws being suspended, a version of March 16th, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. For more information about the suspension, see TASB Legal Services article, Texas Governor Suspends Certain Provisions of Open Meetings Act Due to Coronavirus COVID-19. In accordance with those suspended rules, we certify the following. Notice of this meeting has been posted online for at least 72 hours. Number one, although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference and/or telephone call. Number two, we are meeting by use of Cisco WebEx software application, which allows two-way communication for members of the public. Number three, as we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on the meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will be unmuted for 3 minutes to speak. If the speaker submitted written comments in advance, the board secretary will read the comments into record before or during the board's consideration of that item. If you would like to provide comment at a future meeting conducted by video conference or telephone call, please follow instructions on the meeting notice. 4, all other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practicable. Number 5, an audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. 6, this software application allows for 1,000 number of people to view and interact at a time. We apologize in advance for any unforeseeable difficulties and ask for you to be patient as we navigate unprecedented conditions. If you have questions about these suspended laws, please call the Office of the Attorney General at 888-672-6787 or by email at toma@oag.texas.gov. And now, we move on our agenda to citizens' participation. Ms. Garcia, do we have any participants signed up from the public to speak at this time? Okay, so we have no one signed up, so we will move to agenda item number 3, which is our public hearing 2020-2021 proposed budgets and tax rate. I believe we have a PowerPoint.
We do, and our Chief Financial Officer will be presenting it along with the Director of Finance. Ms. Grimes? Dr. Wyatt will also be presenting on the compensation portion of this presentation.
Can you see it now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good deal. Okay, good evening, President Woods, board members, Superintendent O'Brien, and guests. Tonight's public hearing to discuss the school district's budget is the final step in the budget development process. We published our notice of public meeting to discuss the budget and proposed tax rate in the Baytown Sun on Thursday, June 4th. This is required by law, and following the public hearing, the board will take action on the budget. As we've mentioned at each budget workshop, some uncertainties remain which may impact the next school year as we continue to face challenges related to COVID-19 And the fiscal year 21 budget proposal is based on a typical forecast and normal assumptions. And as additional information may become available and factors become known that influence the budget, we're required to make adjustments. We're prepared to make adjustments accordingly. And just to note, the district is in a strong financial position, which may help to offset any foreseen revenue shortfalls. So at this point, we will go over significant highlights, and then I'll turn it back over to the board president for public input or comments. Okay. On. The budget objectives listed here, they represent our district standard. And just to point out that for the fiscal year 21, the budget proposal represents a balanced budget. Under planning assumptions, we've assumed an enrollment growth rate of 1%. And we have not included any Chapter 313 revenue protection payments in the general fund budget proposal. Also, pursuant to prior board action, our supplemental, our 313 supplemental revenue payments are accounted for in the capital improvement fund. And they're estimated at $9 million. Foreign trade zone payments for ExxonMobil are estimated at $1.6 million, and they're also included in the capital improvement fund as well. There is no increase in the basic allotment. Therefore, a general pay increase is not recommended. However, a conditional one-time lump sum retention payment may be approved during the 2021 school year. The debt service fund proposed budget is based on an estimated INS tax rate of 32.5 cents, up 3.9 cents from last year's rate, to provide for new bonded debt payments for 2020. And note that this rate is 5.189 cents less than the original tax rate that was estimated. It was estimated originally at 37.689. And this was presented to the voters upon approval of the bond program. And finally, the food service fund budget includes $1.7 million that's committed for capital improvements for the kitchen construction at the new Goose Creek Education Service Center. We also just want to point out that we're proposing a roll forward of 50% from fiscal year 20 to 21 of any unspent funds for both campuses and departments. This is a new process, and it helps with the completion of large projects that may not be finalized prior to the year end. It will also provide some additional funding for campus materials and supplies, since they were closed for a portion of the current school year, limiting purchasing opportunities. Want to review the tax rate again. The M&O tax rate, the estimate for 2020 is a little over $1.05. It's actually a decrease of about 1.4 pennies. It's 1.36. Less than last year's tax rate. The INS tax rate estimate for 2020 is 32.5 cents, or 3.9 cents higher than last year's rate, for a total tax rate estimate of for 2020 of almost $1.38, about 2.5 cents higher than last year's rate. Also note that the Texas Education Agency, they plan to survey school districts at the end of July regarding taxable property values and local exemption amounts, and they will determine the maximum compressed rate for each district for Tier 1. Therefore, the estimated tax rate is subject to change, and the district we're scheduled to adopt the tax rate in the fall, probably September. Again, this is just a graph depicting the enrollment growth over the past 5 years is 2%. This slide represents preliminary taxable property values. They're about the same as last year, give or take 1% for M&O and INS. They have different values based on the Chapter 313 limitation agreements in place. This is just a summary slide showing the different compensation plan scenarios. This was the one-time lump sum payment that may be considered by the board at a future date. The amount will be determined at that point. These were just some scenarios that were presented during one of the workshops. So this is our combined budgeted revenue for all funds. This is showing each of the legally adopted required budgets: the general fund, school nutrition fund, and debt service fund. Our total combined revenue for all required funds is $308.5 million, and combined expenditures total $305.5 million. And the ending combined estimated fund balance of $141.5 million exceeds the target fund balance for all funds. Won't go over this in detail, but this is, again, the detailed listing of our long-range capital improvement plan. This does span multiple fiscal years. This is a 5-year plan. If you basically go down to the last page, you can see the remaining amount at the very bottom line is always greater than zero. These funds will not be dispersed until revenue collections have been received on the various items that make up the revenue. Going back to that first line, you can see the breakdown at the top of the revenue sources. So these funds are not dispersed for that current period until the revenue is actually collected in, they're due January 31st or February 1. So usually at that time, then we can proceed with any of the projects listed here. That's the only thing I have to summarize, and this really concludes our budget proposal. At this point, I'll turn it back over to the board president, Ms. Woods, and she can resume the public hearing.
Ms. Grimes, I did note to the board that we would hear something on the compensation package from Dr. Wyatt. Is he available?
I think he's on the call, but
yes, sir, I'm here. But Margie did go over the compensation pieces, which would be the one-time lump sum retention incentive payment of up to $1,500.
Okay, so if there's no further presentation, I would like to open this up to public. If there are any questions or comments from the public at this time. Is there a time limit on what they're allowed to speak? Oh, in the chat window, they can do questions in the chat. All right, so type your questions in the chat window if you have questions for the board or the finance department concerning budget. Is my chat window is not open, so. Is that this one up here? Oh, hey, look, it's a bubble. Am I supposed to reply verbally or? And so I see no questions from the audience, the public at this time. If you're typing, hit enter so I know you're there. Otherwise, I'm going to open it up to board members with questions or comments, concerns about the presentation.
So, am I on?
Mr. Clem, I can hear you.
Okay.
Point of order, Mr. Laredo, what do I?
Point of order. I think we need to do that when we are going to vote. That's when we ask questions.
No, there's time for questions now. Comments, questions.
In the public hearing, I think we have, that's for the public. I think we get to ask our questions during the voting process when we make a motion.
That's fine with me.
Where's our lawyer?
Mr. Laredo's correct.
And so, Dr. O'Brien, we will move forward. Questions and comment period for the public hearing is closed. Thank you, Ms. Grimes and budget team.
hey, you're welcome.
Okay, so we will move on to budget agenda item number 4, approval of minutes. We have June 1, 2020 regular board meeting minutes presented in our packet. I would call for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Poppy, a second by Mr. Laredo. Any question, comment? All in favor of the minutes as presented, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
And that leaves none opposed and none abstaining, all in favor. Now we move to item number 5, discussion items, which turns back over to Dr. O'Brien for superintendent's reports.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to present to you this evening. We have 3 presentations. The first one beginning with the president of Lee College, Dr. Villanueva, and Regent Mark Hall will be presenting a proposal for Lee College to enter into an MOU with Goose Creek regarding tuition partnership. So, Dr. Villanueva, are you with me?
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Terrific. Well, it's such a pleasure to be with everyone tonight. I would like to start off by thank you for allowing me for the little bit of time that I'll get to spend with you on your agenda. So Lee College was so pleased to be able to offer free classes to Goose Creek seniors this summer. And in fact, 205 2020 graduates are taking approximately 500 Lee College classes this summer at no cost to them. And the total cost, if students paid, would have been approximately $145,000. But we also covered the cost of books, bringing the total savings to our Goose Creek 2020 graduates to $180,000 this summer. But we're always looking for ways to build upon our very strong partnership with Goose Creek. And this is particularly so as we face these very difficult times. So tonight I'm pleased to share a plan to support our very mutual and overlapping missions to transition students to college. So our proposal is that Lee College and Goose Creek proposes the establishment of an MOU that will equally cover the cost of tuition and fees for 2020 Goose Creek graduates who attend Lee College in the fall semester. And this would be for those students who would attend Lee College for as a full-time student. All students would be required to complete the FAFSA and expend all federal aid, and any uncovered tuition and fees would be equally split between Lee College and Goose Creek. Right now, data shows us approximately that 50% of students in our area are not going to any institution of higher education after they graduate. So this really is a great opportunity to focus on supporting these students that are at Goose Creek. But there's another tangible benefit. Goose Creek, like other independent school districts, receives funding in the form of something that's called College Career and Military Readiness funding from House Bill 3. And for every student who becomes CCMR, or College and Career Military Ready, the school district receives between $2,000 and $5,000, depending upon if a student is economically disadvantaged. So districts can earn this in several ways, but one of the most important ways is attending college in the fall semester. So by supporting students to go to college full-time at Lee College this fall semester, Goose Creek is also receiving additional funding and increasing their own college-going attendance rate. And by our calculations, even if a quarter of students who don't attend college right now take advantage of this MOU, Goose Creek could cover the cost of this investment and earn additional funding above and beyond what it's putting in. So I'd like to thank the Goose Creek Board for its consideration. And I'd also like to introduce the Lee College Board of Regents Chairman, Mark Hall, who also has some brief comments for the board.
Thank you, Dr. Villanueva, and I appreciate your time to speak just for a few minutes. When Dr. Villanueva brought this to the board or to me for us to start talking about, this is a new idea for us, free tuition. Hear about it a lot on the national scale, but not locally. I've always believed that students should have some skin in the game, just philosophically, when they're considering their college education. But we're in unprecedented times. We've never faced a crisis like this. And so begin to think about the opportunities that do not exist for students coming out of high school currently. And so this began to be very attractive. As a community, when things start to pick up, we, as never before, need to be prepared and have an educated workforce. And so Lee College, Goose Creek Schools collects taxes. And I felt like, and I think the rest of our board will concur, that we need to draw down on that investment that we've been making in our schools, and particularly for us in Lee College over the years, and draw down on that investment and make opportunities available that are not normally available, and that is this free tuition. One day industrial growth will resume. It may already be doing that. When it does, we need to have students ready, educated, and in place, if possible, to join that workforce. And that's our responsibility. So anything we can do, anything we can change to accomplish that, we are very anxious to do that. And we would love to have this partnership with Goose Creek Schools. We think it's quite innovative, and we're looking forward to the opportunity to work together.
And just to add to that, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll open up for the board to ask questions here in a moment. Just to add to that, I believe you identify the students once they leave us as grad cafe students. And typically they're identified by students that, or potential students that are just non-college going for various reasons. It could be financially related, it could be motivation related, it could be fear. But by providing an opportunity to get them kick-started, this may change their whole course of their direction of their whole life if they just get in the front door. And so I commend you on making this proposal to Goose Creek CISD and have reviewed it. I want to make clear to the board that this is an investment on the part of the board, as Regent Hall noted, of taxpayers' dollars. And what Dr. Villanueva said was that a portion of this could be reimbursable, but the board should take this MOU into consideration as if we were not being reimbursed, because we don't know the amount. That's a future item a year from now that we could qualify for those reimbursements, and they may or may not match. But as she also stated, we may get more than the investment we're making to get these kids a first-time start. So it's a wait and see on the reimbursable amount. Although we can estimate and forecast, it's not an exact science with House Bill 3 at this point in time. That, I think that they would be glad to take any questions you might have.
Yes.
If we take all the legal words out of the MOU, what are we agreeing to cover? Is it just tuition? Is it tuition fees, books? What are we talking about?
So that would be both tuition and fees, not books.
Okay.
And it would be the cost of just obviously in-district tuition. And we estimate, I mean, a minimum would have to be 12 credits, but it could be in excess between 12 and 18 credit hours.
Okay, so 12 hours is the full-time student.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
And who exactly is our target for this program?
I believe our target is those students who ordinarily wouldn't have considered going to college either at all, but those students also who might think that they could only go to college and take maybe one class and think that they may need to work a great deal out of school. So this is a real opportunity to go to school full-time and make that their full-time job by going to school.
I just want to make a comment in regards to this. As a father of two kids that are taking advantage of your program you're having this summer, I really want to thank you. But in addition to that, I think it's very important that as a board, we support these kind of initiatives. These are one of those things that we're putting in money now, and even if we don't get anything back, which we're hoping we are, it's one of those things that'll pay back later in not just for Goose Creek, but in our whole community, in helping us economically grow and helping provide better lives and better future students, because parents will be able to take care of their families. So I really want to thank you and your Board of Regents, Dr. Villanueva, for being so forward-thinking and thinking of us.
Thank you, Chairman.
Are we going to reach out to these kids, or are we going to just have them voluntarily come? Is it a first come, first basis, or are we going by grades, or how are we going to make this happen?
So that's a great question. We are currently working together to develop a marketing campaign. And in fact, Dr. O'Brien and I were just chatting today about signing a data sharing agreement so that we might be able to develop a very targeted marketing and recruitment campaign to support all of the graduates of Goose Creek. But certainly there is no grade point average minimum. And so like all community colleges, we support everyone who wants to go. And so anyone who wants to attend college full time will be eligible for this opportunity. And we fully support anyone, any graduate of Goose Creek from the 2020 class to go to college full time.
Is there a cutoff period?
So our cutoff period would be just the last date of enrollment for the fall semester, which would be into August.
Okay, what about numbers for his students? Is there a cutoff on how many students? Is it based on the amount of money that each one of us are giving?
So at this point, we have used a very conservative estimate to review the amount of funds that could potentially be expended by either partner. And so when we look at the data for the number of students who are not going to college from Goose Creek, the maximum number of students that we could potentially be serving that we're talking about would be approximately 600 students, but that's really on the very high end. And so when we estimate the total number of costs between 12 credit hours and potentially 18 credit hours, and this is before any financial aid is distributed, the very high end would be anywhere between $325,000 to $468,000. So that is the very top end of the investment that we're talking about.
Okay.
But that again is before financial aid or federal Pell money or Texas state funds are administered to students. And I would just tell you that keep in mind that we're requiring 100% of our students to apply for this aid. And typically 3/4 of our students are eligible for Pell or free funding. So that money will be reduced and shared 50-50 by both entities, Goose Creek and Lee College, which would reduce the burden of payment on both entities.
And this is just for new graduates, right?
Correct. 2020 graduates of Goose Creek.
Okay.
And this is just for the fall semester?
And just for the fall semester.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
We think that this is a great opportunity to study the response and to see what this does for the college going readiness rates and the college going rates for Goose Creek, and to see how this mutually benefits each of the partners. And so I think, during a difficult time like this, it's a great opportunity to provide hope, but also to look at the data and to see how effective this program is. And then, we might look at seeing whether or not we want to do something similar in the future.
Are we going to kick this off after tonight or?
Pending approval.
Great question. I think pending approval, but also pending approval of the Lee College Board of Regents, which is this Thursday.
Yes.
So we had to start somewhere though.
We let you guys go first, but we're excited about the program.
Okay. So what if this just me throwing the nail in the hat and let it wrinkle? What if we approve it tonight and then you get to Lee College Board and they saying, whoa, no, we can't do this?
Well, we're eternal optimists, so I just can't even imagine something like that happening. But I would just say that maybe Chairman Hall would want to speak to this, but we have had some informal conversations, and the response from our board in supporting summer tuition for free, which has been on a much larger platform than what we're proposing for Goose Creek, has been extremely favorable. And so I can't imagine, given the support that our board is providing, that they would want to not support this proposal. But perhaps Chairman Hall would make a comment.
I would just add, I'm limited because of open meetings of contacting all of the board members because we have yet to discuss this as a board. But with myself and vice chair and one or two others, we are very positive. We're very excited about this, and it's just a follow-up on the program that we're already doing for the summer.
Right.
I can tell you that we're prepared. If we didn't have any federal funds that were helping us, I think that our board would be prepared to pick up the cost, basically made up by budget cuts and any other place that we can find money we look at this, our time right now, as an extraordinary time. And so we are going to make sure that this works. And our hopes are that this becomes a model for our surrounding districts to take a look at. And so we're very optimistic about the possibilities here. And it's unusual. This is novel, and we're hoping to make it maybe carried into the future also.
Thank you, President. Just so you'll know, it is later on in our agenda for the board to consider and vote on this item. But thank you very much for your presentation.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
The other question was, we have, and this is in the past, we have gotten into agreements with Lee College, and maybe, I know it's a different president and everything, but we've gotten to the cliff and thought we was going to jump together, and then all of a sudden it was just us jumping. So that's what I'm optimistic that this will work, and I'm hoping it will work because it will help a lot of students that's coming out of GCC ISD. But I don't want to get to the cliff and then all of a sudden we're the only one jumping without a parachute. So,
well, Mr. Sampson, I think that the vote tonight is showing good faith on the part of the board members of Goose Creek, and would send us a positive message to Lee College as well.
yeah.
And besides that, the MOU would be void and null if both parties don't agree to it. So
Okay.
I appreciate the hope that this opportunity gives students who have just come out of Goose Creek, especially under the circumstances that they've graduated this year. The summer program seems to be doing extremely well. I appreciate Dr. Villanueva and Chairman Hall's presentation of this opportunity, and I believe that we can provide a positive message to the community and to our students if we are able to form a relationship to move these children forward. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you. Can I just add one small point, and that is making good on our promise has been our investment already this summer. And so without any ask from any of our partners, we have been very pleased to cover the costs of full tuition and fees and books for all of our area residents. And that was a commitment made without any ask. And so we were very pleased to do that without any partnership, but we're even more pleased to be able to do this together. So we look forward to jumping off that cliff together.
and we are
Sure, we had a parachute.
all right. Thank
Hey,
you all very much. We
with you.
appreciate you.
Mr. Sampson, I'll be right there with you.
All right. All right.
All right, that concludes our first superintendent's report. We do have a couple more. We have Stephanie Myers from Benefits Department that will be presenting the district requirements for COVID-19 paid and extended leave. Ms. Meyer, are you on the line?
I'm going to make the introduction, Dr. O'Brien. Good evening, Madam President, Dr. O'Brien, and board members. The Family First Coronavirus Response Act includes two components: the emergency paid sick leave and the expanded family and medical leave. With us tonight is Ms. Stephanie Myers, Goose Creek's benefits coordinator, to share with you how the district will be implementing both of these leaves as the need arises. And also with us tonight is Ms. Patricia Pena, our nurse coordinator, in case y'all have any questions or concerns. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Myers at this time.
Good evening, everyone. We're going to see if we can share the screen. Can y'all see it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity. We're going to talk to you just a few minutes about and provide you with some information of some of the requirements that our President of the United States signed into order back in March of this year in reference to the CARES Act. And so the purpose of the CARES Act is to comply with the requirements of the federal Families First Corona Response Act. And then also it provides two components to that. So one component is the emergency paid sick leave, and the other component is actually the extended paid leave that is an extension of FMLA. So for those that are affected by COVID-19 due to the pandemic, and this is from April the 1st through December 31st of this year. So the first part of the component is the paid sick leave, and this is the requirements that the district is required to pay employees that may have fall into one of these categories listed on this screen. So the first one is going to be subject to a federal, state, or local quarantine or isolation under an order. That's similar to what we had the past couple months where everybody was mandated to stay at home and quarantine and work from home. Well, the district is required to pay 100% of pay up to 80 hours to employees that fall under this category. The second category is for any employee that has been advised by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine related to COVID-19. The district is responsible to pay that employee up to 80 hours, 100% of pay. And there is a cap at $511 a day. The third category is any employee that is experiencing COVID-19 symptoms and is seeking a medical diagnosis. So under the order of a doctor, they are eligible for 100% of pay up to 80 hours, and that is the same thing, a cap of $511 a day. Any employee, and this changes a little bit as far as 100% of pay, but any employee that is caring for an individual in their family or self-quarantining, they are eligible for 2/3% of their pay up to 80 hours, and that's capped at $200 a day. And then anybody who is caring for a child whose school or place of care is closed, so such as our child care facilities, they're unavailable due to the closure of COVID-19, then we are responsible to pay that employee 2/3% of their pay up to 10 weeks, and we'll talk about that in just a few minutes, payment up to a cap of $200 a day. And number 6 is just experiencing any other substantial similar conditions as specified by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. So under the expanded leave, this really only applies to number 5, which is any employee that is caring for a child whose place, school or place of child care or facility is closed due to COVID-19 reasons. That employee is actually entitled to up to 12 weeks of job protected leave for an employee if remote work is not available due to caring for the employee's son or daughter who is under the age of 18 and the place of business has been closed or child care provider is unavailable due to the public health emergency. This applies even if a child is receiving some or all instruction online or by means of other district learning. So for the first 10 days of the extended family medical leave, it is considered unpaid unless the employee requests to be paid under the emergency paid sick leave policy. After that first 10 days, if they elect to do the emergency sick leave policy, they get 2/3% of their salary or per day up to $200 max. And then after that, after the 10 days of unpaid leave, an employee is entitled to 10 weeks of job protected paid leave at 2/3% of their salary up to a $200 a day max. The family medical leave will be allowed to be taken intermittent as needed up to a maximum leave allowed, and the district will allow employees to use or to supplement 1/3 of accrued leave that they have in their leave banks to receive 100% of pay. Some of these situations that employees may fall into is once we open school, if our employee has we have an employee that works for our district, maybe they have children that are in another district and that maybe they're doing some type of distant learning or doing some type of digital learning, and maybe they're not in class, like an alternate schedule. Maybe they're in class 2 days a week and they're at home the other 2 or 3 days a week, and our employee may need to be at home with that child. Because of that, and this is a change that's due to COVID-19, our employee may be eligible for this type of leave where we're responsible to pay them 2/3% of their salary. So the procedures for approving the paid sick leave and then also the extended family medical leave is that the employee first should contact their principal or supervisor of a need to be off work due to a COVID-19 related illness or situation. The employer, the principal, and the supervisor shall notify the nurse coordinator, which is Ms. Patricia Pena, with the employee's name and the last day that they were at the district facility. The nurse coordinator contacts the employee to obtain specific information about exposure and or testing if applicable. And then nurse coordinator adds necessary information to a Google Doc that is shared with the benefits office. I then contact the employee to initiate the leave process and send notification to the supervisor, secretary, and then also payroll. Employees will be allowed to work from home during the quarantine period if this option is available, and that is depending on whether the employee is an exempt employee or an hourly employee, and their supervisor has approved for them to work from home because they are able to log in and work from home. So the return to work process, so the employees are required to follow the guidelines established by the CDC in prevention as it relates to ceasing home isolation practices. So the first one is the 3 days with no fever, and then symptoms have improved, and then 10 days since symptoms first appeared, and receive the negative test result. So the district will require the employee to provide a negative test result prior to returning to work if the employee is the one that was actually tested positive, or if they are caring for a family member that tested positive. The district also requires the employee to be tested and then also provide a negative test result prior to coming back to our facilities. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from board members? Dr. O'Brien, thank you and Ms. Meyer, thank you very much for your presentation on the paid and extended leave for COVID-19.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chapa, as well, and Ms. Pena. We have our next superintendent's report, which will be coming from the Goose Creek CISD Education Foundation. Their president, Mr. Ronnie Hotchkiss. Mr. Hotchkiss,
Good evening.
you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good evening, Board President, Ms. Woods, board members, and Superintendent O'Brien. I'm Ronnie Hotchkiss, Goose Creek ISD Education Foundation president, and on behalf of our foundation, we thank you for this opportunity to speak with you tonight. The GCC ISD Education Foundation is an independent nonprofit corporation organized and operated exclusively for the benefit of Goose Creek ISD. We truly believe that we help make dreams come true. The mutual conveyance and promise in our MOU states that we agree to the following. The school board has identified the following educational public purposes for the district's support of the foundation. Because of uncertain and restrictions inherent in public school financial systems, the district must seek alternative sources of revenue in order to continue and enhance its quality education programs. The foundation can engage strong community support to assist the district in maximizing alternative revenue sources, which requires reciprocal commitment and support from the district. Continuation of this momentum achieves in maximum alternative revenue sources through the foundation requires continual commitment from the district. Community involvement in raising money for educational program achieves a concurrent psychological and philosophical investment in the district. The foundation invests time and resources to generate and improve community support for creating alternative sources that benefit the district and its students. The community's legitimate expectation is that the district provide from limited use of facilities, equipment, and personnel. The community realizes this support as a convenience to the foundation. Solicitation by the foundation directors and personnel relieves the funding burden from the superintendent, administrators, teachers, and staff, leaving them free to focus on the educational mission of the district. Revenues obtained by the foundation will provide for the betterment of the district's educational program. The district has realized gains from its assistance to the foundation. The commitment, the school board agrees to provide the following to the foundation, provided that the public purpose continues to be met and the controls continue to be implemented. The district will share annual annually with the foundation its strategic plan, institutional priorities, projects, and resource requirements so that the foundation may represent the direction and needs of the district to donor prospects and align its programs and campaigns consistent with the strategic objectives of the district. The district will provide office space, facilities, and utilities for the employees of the district serving the foundation. The district will provide all or portions of equipment used by the district's employees serving the foundation. The district will provide all or a portion of the salaries and benefits of the employees supporting the foundation. The director and any supporting personnel provided to the foundation shall be employees of the district under the direct supervision and controls of the district's superintendent. Responsibilities of the foundation will be its best efforts to solicit, collect, invest, and administer funds for the foundation, which shall be to enrich educational environments in this district. The foundation shall contribute more to the district than the value of the district's contribution to the foundation. The foundation agrees to recognize the district as its sole beneficiary for solicitation of programs. The foundation has fiduciary responsibilities for the operation of the foundation and the authorization of the expenditure of funds. The foundation shall collect and authorize such funds to be used for the educational projects in alignment with the district's strategic plan and instructional priorities. The controls, the foundation shall provide the district with an annual report, which will happen shortly, which shall be presented to the school board at a public school board meeting. The foundation shall provide a cost-benefit evaluation to the district regarding the district's investment in the foundation and the foundation's use of this investment for educational or public purpose. This district shall determine each year at the time of development of its district budget which adequate consideration has been received from the foundation in the previous year and will likely be receiving the following fiscal year to assist the foundation board in determining funding for the coming fiscal year. The foundation may consult with the superintendent regarding the directors and support personnel's jobs performance. This agreement was signed by School Board President Mr. Ken Martin, Board Secretary Ms. Janice Coffey, and Education Foundation President Mr. Roger Ellswick and Foundation Secretary Mr. Daryl Fotno, August 9th of 2010. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Walsh, who has the remainder of our presentation. Thank you.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay, great. So my name is Jennifer Walsh, and I'm the president-elect of the Goose Creek CISD Education Foundation. Now, the Education Foundation has provided an alternative source of revenue to the Goose Creek School District from 2010 to 2019. And our foundation has awarded Goose Creek educators more than $1,132,428 for innovative teaching grants over that time frame. Additionally, our foundation has distributed $74,455 in designated funds for additional projects. This brings the foundation's total support to more than $1.2 million. So a little round of applause, that's amazing. So our 31-member board has helped to enhance community support for education through our All-Star Gala, which some of you were attending, so thank you for that, at Minute Maid with the Astros legend, Jeff Bagwell, and also through media publications of grant-funded projects. We have involved this community as much as we can in our fundraising for these educational programs, helping us create a philosophy of an investment in our children. They are our future, and investing in them is investing in our community. Our foundation is comprised of both large and small members, with our large corporate partners as well as small local businesses, along with many independent supporters, including community leaders, parents, teachers, administrators, and employees from all over the district. In fact, that's probably one of the things that I'm most proud of, is seeing the teachers support other teachers through this foundation and through awarding these grants. Through the cooperation of the school board and this foundation, we have awarded 627 innovative teaching grants from the foundation's inception in 2010 through the spring of 2019. These grants have helped enhance the district's educational programs and create new opportunities for this district's students. The foundation also supports Student Choice Awards banquets, annually allowing graduating seniors to honor educators who have impacted their lives. This foundation has met its fiduciary responsibilities as defined in the foundation's bylaws, policies, and guidelines. So a little bit about the cost-benefit evaluation. It's estimated about $60,000 is the financial support received from the district in the 2018-2019 school year. And that's based on the part-time support from the communications director, communications secretary, and other communications and multimedia website personnel, including facilities, office, utilities, equipment support for employees during business hours. The contribution from the foundation in the 2018-2019 school year is $187,596 awarded in the 2019 spring grants. And that was, the spring grants was $158,000 and $158,965, and then designated funds was $28,630.65. We had 74 grants awarded to 25 campuses, and the designated funds were distributed, and Student Choice Awards banquet was held, which supports public purpose. So we created a net return on investment of $127,596. In 2010, we awarded just over $39,000 in grants. So most recently in 2019, so you looked at 2010, 39,000, 2019, it was $159,000 in grants. So we have grown in not only our contributions from the community, but grown in giving back to this district in a very meaningful way. Now, on behalf of the Goose Creek CISD Education Foundation, donors, and board, I'm pleased to announce that we have identified 59 grants totaling $141,430.69. I present this donation virtually to the Board of Trustees for your consideration. Thank you for your time, and we would be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you for supporting our teachers and our kids.
Are there any questions from board members concerning the grants or the fiduciary responsibility of the Goose Creek Education Foundation? I appreciate President Hotchkiss and President-elect Jennifer Walsh, the work that you're doing. I've been a big supporter of the foundation myself since the beginning, and I think the district as a whole has definitely benefited from our relationship. Do we have any other questions for the foundation directors? Thank you very much for your presentation, and we are extremely pleased with your financial report.
Thank you, Ms. Woods. And we appreciate all of the support that we've received from all of the board members over the years. We certainly appreciate your continued support.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, we will move on from superintendent reports to action items. Number 6 on the agenda, action item 6A is consider and approve adoption of the 2020-2021 proposed budgets for the general fund, debt service, and school nutrition fund. I think now would be the time when we would be able to discuss and ask questions about the budget as presented during the superintendent's report, or during the public hearing, I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am.
I think Mr. Clem, are you muted? Yeah, Matt, I can't hear him.
How about that?
Thank you. I can hear you, Mr. Clem.
Thank you. All right. Ms. Grimes, back on, I believe it was on slide 3. Give me a chance to get there. Under planning assumptions, do I have Ms. Grimes or Mr.
Yes, she should be available.
Mr. Wyatt or both?
Okay, you're on slide 3.
It's
Under planning assumptions.
under
Planning assumptions.
Under compensation benefit increase, Mr. Wyatt or Dr. Wyatt referred to that being our presentation toward the budget as for the compensation package. Is that correct?
Well, we presented options at the last, and
I know,
we didn't re-present those. That's just a
Correct.
recap of what
So what exactly is that recommending?
that is basically saying that there wasn't a basic allotment increase provided by TEA, so there were no additional funds granted to the district this year. However, in order to offset the cost of living, the budget does include a one-time lump sum retention payment for employees to be determined by the board on a later date, anytime during the fiscal year, based on available resources. So it's more or less a one-time payment that would come from fund balance rather than where a general pay increase would be an annual reoccurring increase to the budget and would therefore have to be included in the budget for adoption. Any inclusion of a general pay increase would result in us adopting a deficit budget, which we could do. We prefer not to do. That was one of our objectives, is to try to ensure that we balance the budget at the operating level. But it is definitely a decision that the board has as to compensation. We allowed under here for as much as $1,500 for every employee. So it could be like a grossed up payment where every employee would receive a net payment of $1,000, or anything up to a $1,500 gross payment could be paid to every employee. That currently doesn't have to include an appropriation in the budget. That would be amended at a later date once the board decides if and how much would be paid as a lump sum.
Okay. What is the district's definition of salary increase?
Salary increase is generally an increase, and Ron can jump in here anytime, an increase to the base pay. This is not really a base pay adjustment.
Okay. Where in this presentation did we see the recommended salary schedule, if you will, the hiring range that we place our teachers on each year?
That backup is behind the agenda item for the compensation plan. We didn't include it in the public hearing since it had been presented before.
Where is it in the budget? Where is the money that, where in the budget is the compensation package we're going to see in a minute? I don't understand why we're being asked to approve a budget. I haven't seen what we're paying our teachers, librarians, and nurses yet.
I agree.
We can always look at the next agenda item and come back to the adoption of the budget.
Because what's going to happen if we approve the budget as you've presented it, then we don't improve this salary schedule, and we want something else? Which set of numbers is in the budget we're looking at right now?
None of the salary general pay increases are in the budget.
So step increase is considered a salary increase.
Right.
So we're freezing step increases.
Dr. Wyatt might be able to answer that better. It's not a pure freeze. And Dr. Wyatt, could you speak about the year 0 and 1 year? There is an adjustment in there.
Yeah, $250. We can all see that.
Right.
So everybody else has got a step freeze. Let's call it what it is.
Well, we don't do step increases, and we haven't, as long as I've been in Goose Creek. we do just a general pay increase, traditionally based on a percentage of the midpoint approved by the board. And then we reformulate our teacher scales. So the step.
Oh, it's a surprise every year what a teacher gets paid.
Then yes.
Yes. When did
Yes.
it start?
I'm sorry?
No, not forever. When did that policy start? When did that practice start? Remember, I taught in the district for 28 years, and there was 1 year that I didn't get an increase based on a step on your salary schedule. And we were told that before we signed contracts. So I'm uncomfortable with this because I've never seen this salary schedule before tonight. And you're asking me to approve a budget with no increase whatsoever except for 0-year teachers going to the first year or the first step on the salary schedule. Is that correct?
That is correct that there's not a salary increase.
But why are we just now hearing that? Why was that not defined to us months ago? When did we start thinking about this?
Well, we presented all of the options at the last workshop.
Okay, I have a problem with that too, so I'm going to go ahead and get this out here. When we start developing next year's budget, I want it to start immediately. I want the calendar. I want to know when we ask people for their budget requests. I want to know when we start looking at funding from the state, and I don't want all this dumped in my lap the night I have to vote on the budget. I'm through. Thank you.
Quite honestly, I thought we were putting into what we're doing. We were putting in the lump sum tonight. I feel very uncomfortable asking our teachers, especially the year they just had. You know, unlike some people in the world that think the teachers just Cadillac the last 2-3 months of school, they just had one of the worst situations dealing with their own families, their health, dealing with their children their students going through situations, and here we're asking to go into the next year. I can maybe understand where we don't give a raise this year because of what's going on, but to go in and ask them blindly to go in without giving them any kind of increase is not what I understood was going to happen either.
Okay, so in early development of the budget, not knowing what the future holds, we did set the perimeters of a conservative approach to this. Since that point in time, we've received several updates from our Commissioner of Education indicating that the future did not indicate that we would have increase in funding available to us. We do recall last year the teachers got a 5% raise. So some school districts held back on that 5% and did 2%, 3% last year and have a 2 or 3% to come back to this year. We front loaded all of it on the front end of House Bill 3, truthfully not knowing how long House Bill 3 would be in session because every 2 years it's voted upon and it could have been voted out just as easy as it was voted in, the parameters for House Bill 3. So we have been monitoring all of the school districts across Region 4, and I don't have exact numbers for you, but there is a consistent conservative approach with many school districts not looking at increases percentage-wise, but many of them looking at the lump sum option as was presented tonight. And we did talk about the lump sums the last 2 meetings, but we haven't pulled out the pay scale. So I understand you're being a little startled with not seeing that pay scale until tonight. We probably should have brought that forth, no question about it. But we were focused on what we would do with a lump sum consideration, and that's what we wanted to present to the board tonight. But we can, what the difference is, and what Margie hadn't said, is any pay increase would present to you an unbalanced budget. Her objective was to present a balanced budget, as it is our goal every single year to the board, to be able to do that and then allow for the lump sum, for example, fund balances available to cover that. But if we wanted to present a 1%, 2%, or 3% raise, for example, tonight you propose that, it just wouldn't be a balanced budget. We would either adopt a $5 million deficit budget, up to a $5 million deficit budget, or you would commit tonight to pay this coming year's percentage increase out of fund balance. So our objective and our goal, Margie's all along, has been to have a balanced budget. But I do apologize to the board for not having all of the information at each of the last 3 meetings.
Is function 11 where salaries fall?
Teachers and instructional salaries fall in 11, and
Okay.
depending
Of the 140 million plus that's being proposed, how much of that is salaries?
80% of our budget is salaries.
I realize that, but specifically under function 11, which is teachers, how much of that is salaries?
I can get that information. I don't.
Tough guess.
Yeah, about 80% of the number that's there, about 80% of 140 million.
So 80% of 3.5 million is a salary increase for somebody, because it's about 3.5 million more than last year.
Most of those are new positions or changes in positions.
$3.5 million worth?
Pretty much.
Miss Dillon in the back said, right, okay.
I'm wondering, again, back on page 3, or I'm sorry, page 8, it says that payments under the Chapter 313, payments received over the last few years have resulted in excess fund balance. What's the excess fund balance?
The fund balance, the estimated fund balance for the general fund at the end of this fiscal year is estimated to be 103 million. That's our total fund balance.
What would you define as excess?
This year, the excess is estimated to be 5.8 million.
So there's enough in there for the raises if we wanted to do that.
The raises are, once you approve a raise, a general pay increase, that is an ongoing cost that must be incurred every year, that there's no revenue to match. You're betting on future revenues to cover that, basically. So that the general pay increase is paid out of this fund balance, then next year we revisit a general pay increase based on hopefully an increase in the basic allotment that TEA approves. But if we approve a general pay increase, it has to be sustainable, because every year that increment's going to be there with no offsetting revenue.
Well, I just want to go on record saying that I think if teachers aren't getting raises and pay increases this year, nobody gets pay increases this year.
Ms. Grimes, I have a question. The next agenda item, is it voting for the one-time lumps payment, or is it for us to vote on it later in the year?
The agenda item on the comp plan is to approve the one-time lump sum retention payment, for which the amount would be determined by the board at a later date.
Why isn't the amount determined now?
You can determine it now, but you're not required to, because it's basically contingent upon what Chapter 313 revenues we may get in the fall. You might decide for it to be higher or lower depending upon those revenues once they become known this fall. And some of that information is not yet available. So it was left open to the board based on our financial condition and what resources we have available as to how much you might want to pay in a lump sum. So a $1,500 lump sum is a really high amount compared to like a 2% pay increase.
Well, I understand that. I'm not asking for what. Let's suppose we do 1,000 across the board, a little bit more, $200-300, so they can get $1,000 at Christmas time, for example.
Right.
Can we go if we can go higher later? We can review that and change that later. Why wouldn't we do the other part now?
Which other part?
Why wouldn't we approve $1,000 now? I mean, I can understand not knowing and not giving a raise right now because we don't know what's tomorrow's going to hold, and we know how much our legislature and the TA loves us. But we can at least do something so that our employees after tonight feel good that they're getting something, preferably around the holidays, to help them out.
Well, and that was our recommendation, is that you have the ability to offer up to $1,500. It would range up to that maximum amount, and hopefully we would pay it out maybe on the December 4th payday. So it would be a lump sum, and it would be paid. We could gross it up and pay a net paycheck to every employee of $1,000.
What would be the amount for $1,000?
Well, we have about 3,000 employees and you gross it
No,
up.
no, I mean per employee. What would it take for the employee to get $1,000, Scott, cleared?
It's about, with the gross would have to be about 1,200.
About, or
$1,200.
if we went for 13, if we made a motion for 13, it would cover the 1,000 per employee.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I hope that answers your questions. I'm not an expert in compensation, but the teacher pay scale usually has to be determined by Ann Patton once we decide what direction we're going to go, because there are adjustments to give teachers that equity that needs to be made sometimes between positions. And so it's usually the last thing we present. And so I apologize too. I didn't foresee that that was a need at an
To interject a little bit, Margie, there's not very much difference between the lump sum proposal, a dollar amount, the far right-hand column, and for, say, for example, 2.5% or 3%. So you're accommodating for it financially, but only in 1 year because that's all we know about. Once we know something more with the legislative session going into session in January, we'll know about the following years to come and being able to set that up. But this is a budget adopted for this year. We're going with what we know in regards to this proposal. But it is the board's purview at this point in time to consider these lump sum proposals by administration, or the only thing I would say about tonight is timeline means we need to make a decision tonight. It's not something we can bring back to you next board meeting or something of that nature. It's something that would need to be made tonight. If you want to make a proposal for a percentage raise that would be in perpetuity, that would be something that Ms. Grimes could put together, but it would show up potentially in a $5 million deficit budget that would be perpetual every year, a $500,000 perpetual.
President Woods, can we
Or $5 million.
Can we flip agenda item B and A, please?
Absolutely.
So just for my sake, I think the biggest takeaway that I'm hearing is when we leave tonight, the teachers need to know not may a one-time payment happen, there will be a one-time payment, or there will be a salary increase. That's what it sounds like. Not being
So
in limbo.
We're doing salary increase now. That has to be determined now.
Right, because that has to come into the budget.
And I understand the concerns of administration of not having it be a salary increase that you have to sustain year after year after year because there's so many unknowns. So I think we need to look at that one-time payment isn't an optional one-time payment. That one-time payment will happen.
Right.
Based on the way we approve it tonight. Because they need to know that they're getting an increase, whether it's a one-time payment, not so much salary, it's a one-time payment.
And to cover what Margie said,
tonight,
she was referencing the reason she's leaving it at your latitude is because it would be paid contingent upon receivables. You have the money, as Mr. Cotter said, in fund balance that you could go ahead and guarantee it now regardless. So that, I think that's where there's a little confusion on her conveyance of this and your position on, I concur that teachers would like to know absolutely tonight.
I mean, if we have to reach into fund balance for the one-time payment, teachers deserve that, and it's not reoccurring.
Correct.
So we need to commit at least to the one-time payment by the way we action it tonight.
Ms. Woods, I'd like to make a motion that we do a one-time $1,300 payment to be given as a lump sum on the December 4th paycheck, whatever you want to call it, as compensation for all staff.
A one-time compensation payment for all staff, and the amount to be determined.
No, for $1,300.
For $1,300.
If we increase it, I can't hear you.
You're off, Ben.
I would think we keep it at what the recommendation is from administration, not to exceed 1,500. But we commit that we will give a $1,500 one-time payment this year.
Okay, and so,
I don't think we should decrease it.
Well, the only reason is because we can increase it later. But if we do the 1,500, what Ms. Grimes is saying is they won't get 1,500, they'll get less after taxes.
Why
And
not?
but that, the
It's
way
no
I
money.
understand it is that's
Okay,
an amount that
I'll-
we can adjust that
Okay,
amount at our
I'll
leisure.
rescind my motion or I'll change my motion to 1,500.
Okay. And so is that 1,500 gross or net?
What's on, it's 1,500. We can, we can change it later if we need to.
Okay, so we have a motion to, that was action item B for the compensation plan, correct? Is that what we swapped?
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Flopped? Okay, so we have a motion to provide a one-time incentive payment in the amount of at least 1,500
Yes.
for the fall of 2020,
December 4th payment.
December
schedule.
4th payment.
President,
Okay.
I would state the motion not to exceed, because you're not going to pay that as a minimum. Do you want that to not to exceed 1,500 or a minimum of 1,500? Just clarity there.
I said 1,500.
And is that a minimum or a maximum?
Point of order, we're discussing a motion that
That hasn't been
seconded.
seconded.
So could I get you to restate your motion?
Thank you.
Yes, I would like to make a motion that we give a one-time $1,500 payment to all staff to be distributed on December 4th. And that's all staff, from superintendent to teachers to everybody.
Second.
Exempt and non-exempt. Okay, seconded by Mr. Clem. Do we have any discussion?
So the way you did the motion, there's no option to split it out and make it TRS eligible?
Well, wouldn't they have to put it in before the end of the year?
Typically, if you did a January for part of it, up to what the calendar days they've earned, and then the remaining amount in June.
Ben, what, say
There's a
this
way to
2 minutes ago
make
when we
it-
were going back and forth.
And this is why.
Because it was point of
in
order.
our lap the night we have to vote on it.
Okay, so, but
So,
that,
we just do it the way they present it instead of it.
That's what I was going
Showing
to
a
say.
one-time
It's-
payment, you just say that it will be it will happen. There will be a one-time payment not to exceed 1,500, not may based on state funding. We're doing it.
Okay, call for the vote and kill it, and then we'll redo it. We'll let them make the
What's
motion.
the difference? I don't understand the difference.
In Ms. Grimes' presentation, it may be presented, and the preference of the board
If
is
I'm
to
a
put.
teacher, and I know I'm getting it after tonight, I know I'm getting not to exceed, I'm getting $1,500 sometime this upcoming year, as opposed to a teacher who says, well, if it comes back to the board and the board feels like they're in a good mood, I might get a one-time payment, and I might not based on state funding. And once they realize maybe state funding goes down in 3 months and we
No,
don't
I
ever
think
action it,
not that part.
that's my difference.
No, that's what I'm saying. I think you said something about TRS.
You can't give a one-time payment without them earning the days of how many days they've worked in their calendar and have it be part of a TRS annuity. There's a very limited way of structuring lump sum payments to where it could potentially be part of TRS. If you're going to retire the next couple of years, it could actually be part of your salary, base salary, to help your pension.
That's why we had it listed as possibly in two installments.
Correct.
So the ambiguity that's upset you is actually, it was put in here to try to make it better for you. But it has come through as ambiguous. I concur.
No, what was presented to us is it may be that much, it may be less, maybe more. That's what was presented to us tonight. It might not happen at all.
Because of the schedule even shows on some it's 1,000, on some it's 1,200, on some, so.
Yeah, and that was giving us options of what it could look like, those 6 different options when it came back to the board at a later date.
That's what I understood as the reason behind the language of up to 1,500.
The maximum is 1,500, right?
But is that gross or net?
Gross.
Looks pretty neat from here.
I think the 1,500 would have to be a gross payment. We were saying we could gross it up so that every employee could get a net amount, which is, a round even number like 1,000 or 1,200. But I would say the 1,500 would probably be your gross. Otherwise, you're probably going to incur quite a bit of extra cost there that you didn't plan.
Ms. Woods, President Woods, can you please call for a vote and we can kill this motion and then Ben can restate the motion?
Okay, so I had a motion made by Mr. Laredo. I will not repeat because I can't.
You forgot it.
I think we all lost it. And it was seconded by Mr. Clem. So we'll call for a vote. All in favor of said motion, please raise your right hand or say aye. All opposed of said motion, raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
We have 4 opposed and any abstentions of said motion?
4.
And we have 3. So motion dies. So do I have another motion, Mr. Poppy? On the compensation plan.
Just as far as information goes, I'd like to let you know that the number 1 on your scenario is equivalent to a 2.5% raise. Just so everyone will know that. It's the method by which it's being delivered versus the compensation plan. Just wanted you to be aware.
And that's number 1 on
page 8.
If you don't make a motion, I'm going to repeat my old motion.
Come on, Mr. Poppy.
So I'm going to move to consider the 2020-2021 compensation plan and one-time lump sum compensation retention payment.
Right.
Recommended by administration with the caveat that the one-time lump sum payment, compensation retention payment will not exceed $1,500 and will happen whether there's state funding or not.
So I have a motion by Mr. Poppy.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Laredo. Is there any conversation or questions about this motion?
Motion is for up to $1,500, so we can give them $1. Right?
You would not be popular, Mr. Clem.
Start that over.
But what Mr. Laredo and I were trying to avoid. We want people to go home.
I'm going to say it again.
They want them to get up in the morning and know what they're getting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we do have some concerns about said motion. Do we want to take a vote on this one? All in favor of motion as presented? Any opposed to motion as presented? Any abstentions? So nobody, nothing. All right, so this motion dies and we'll try again. Is there a motion on the floor for the compensation, one-time lump sum compensation package as presented by?
Make a motion that we give every employee $1,500, period.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Sampson and a second from Mr. Laredo. Do we have any questions or conversation?
Oh, they're not going to jail because there's some nuances in the policy.
All right, so all in favor of the one-time payment, incentive compensation payment to all employees of the district, please raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Any abstentions? None. All in favor? 7. Motion passes. Okay, Ms. Grimes. Did you get that?
Got it.
Awesome. All right, so that was action item B. I will move back to action item A, which was to consider and approve adoption of the 2020-2021 proposed budgets for the general fund, debt service, and school nutrition fund. Is there a motion or any questions or conversation concerning action item A and adoption of the proposed budget?
Administration recommends adoption of the balanced budget as presented.
I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Poppy and a second by Mr. Laredo. If there's any questions or comments, the time is now. All right, so we'll call for a vote. All in favor of adopting the proposed budget as presented by admin, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
I have 7-4. So any against? No. Any abstentions? No. Motion passes 7-0. All right, moving on to action items 6C, consideration of consent agenda. At this time, is there any item under C1 through 13 that should be pulled or for discussion, or any questions on any of these that we could address at this time?
President Woods, I would just like to pull one, not that I'm for it, and I think it's important enough that we should separate it and vote it on its own.
Good idea.
And which number one?
C1, yes.
All right, so we'll pull C1 from consent. Any others under here that need attention?
I have a question on 5 and I want to pull 13.
Okay, so we will pull 13. And Mr. Clem, your question on number 5, if you'd like to address.
The notice, requirement notice for students at risk of failure waiver, is that concerning STAR only, or the predictions we normally make from STAR as to what future year's performance will be? What are we not notifying right now?
Mr. Clem, this is Melissa Duarte to answer your question.
Thank you.
We are required by law, any child exiting grade and 7th grade who are going into SSI tested area must be notified if they are at risk of failing that STAR test the next year. We've always used the STAR test that they take. And since they did not take it, we need the waiver to do a beginning of the year assessment.
Yeah. We have to have that waiver in order to do the assessment, or in order to use that assessment as the method of notification?
In order to push it back to September.
Okay.
We should have notified parents by summer.
Already. Okay, got you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
That's all I need on that.
Are there any other questions or comments? We've pulled item number 1 and item number 13. Any questions?
Go ahead.
I'd like to move to consider to approve consent agenda item C2 through C12.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Laredo for items C2 through C12 and a second from Mr. Clem. Any other comment or question? All in favor of adopting consent agenda items, please raise your right hand or say aye. Any opposed? Are there any abstentions?
Abstain.
We have 6-4, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Motion passes. All right, let's visit item number 1. Mr. Laredo, you had a comment about number 1?
No, I just want to move for approval. I just wanted to make sure. I thought it was so important it should go on its own.
Was that a move?
Yes.
Motion? I second the motion and the comment.
And the comment. We have a motion from Mr. Laredo to accept the donation from Goose Creek CISD Education Foundation. We have a second from Mr. Clem. Are there any other comments or questions at this time? All in favor of accepting this donation? please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
So we have 7-4, so that would be 0 against and 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Thank you, Goose Creek Education Foundation, for your hard work and support.
Bravo.
Thank you.
Okay, and on to action item number 13, budget amendments pulled from the original. Do we have some discussion?
Yeah, I had some questions.
Questions? Okay.
I guess, Margie, I promise I'm not picking on you tonight.
That's okay.
Our original adopted budget that we're ending tonight was 233 million and change. And throughout the year up to today, we've amended it to be 242 and change, which is a increase of 9 million. Am I reading that correct?
We started out with 233 million, and after this budget amendment, we will be at an amended budget of 245.9 million.
Okay.
Most of that increase is the Chapter 313 revenues. There are some big changes in the budget this year, though, because of the COVID-19 CARES Act provision. What that's doing is they are going to reduce our foundation school program revenues this year in the 1920 school year. So we are reducing revenues by that like amount. We'll move over into another fund. And if we don't have the whole 4.1 million to move over, it could be that we show some revenue losses this year and then gains next year. It's very confusing, I understand. But that is unique about this year's budget amendment. And this is just the net impact of all of that.
So just to, I guess, I think we need to be very cautious and study this page maybe a little more than we think we should, because we may not have the ability to do that this coming year or even in future years. And it's easy to do this by the quarter and it doesn't look like very much, but at the end of 4 quarters, we've increased the budget $9 million. And I understand we had more revenue. I understand all of that. But that's just concerning to me that we just had a huge conversation about not being able to give raises and what are we going to do with this and what are we going to do with that. But we just adopted a budget that's a little bit more than that figure that's on here or is it a little bit less? It doesn't matter. It's in the same neighborhood.
I would like to clarify that, because the increase that we received in the Chapter 313 revenue protection payment this year was $9 million. We didn't budget any of that. We budget zero. So that $9 million is going to fall out to the bottom line and net 5.8. That's our estimate. It could be a little higher. It could be a little lower. Right. But because the Chapter 313 revenue protection is a one-time event, it does give us excess fund balance, but it doesn't guarantee what next year is going to be. So yes, we do have the excess fund balance. We do have the funds to grant the pay increase for this year. But until we know what next year holds, with so many unknowns with COVID and so much of state shortfall budget, we didn't want to commit ourselves to an ongoing sustainable increase in a year such as this. So yes, it did provide us with the plenty of excess revenues to be able to afford to give our employees that lump sum payment.
On this page that you put in our packet, the column that says increase and decrease, are those comparison figures from the March amendment to this June amendment?
The increase-decrease column on this sheet only represents the budget amendment that's highlighted in yellow below. It's the summation of the 3 items below at the very bottom. So it's a decrease in revenue estimates of 1.975. That's a net of everything we've done to adjust for the state is giving us our ADA. We didn't have to take attendance. There's a hold harmless provision, so we've adjusted all that revenue out. We've taken out the COVID-19 reduction. This is the net of everything. Then we have a precautionary $2 million that we always put in there just so we don't bust a function, because some of our budgets are so tight. So this 3.8 that's showing at the bottom, we really expect to have a fund balance increase. Add that $2 million back. We expect it to be $5,818,000. But we
Okay.
put that in there as a precaution. And the reason there's so much of this is because we thought it'd be better to present budget amendments quarterly instead of every month bringing forth something to consider.
And then I haven't taken basic accounting since 10th grade in high school.
Okay.
So the parentheses are negatives or positives in that column?
Negatives.
Okay, I thought that meant negative. Okay, all right, thank you.
Decreases
All right.
to fund balance. That's the impact
Right.
of fund balance, plus or minus. And
Thank
the
you.
one other comment I want to make is that
Sure.
unlike cities and counties, schools have to amend their budget prior to June 30th. And if you don't,
Right.
you miss some of the marks on these functions, you get kind of a ding. You have to disclose. It's just a disclosure in your audit, but you still have to
Right.
disclose that. So we do our best to project this, given, the year's not over yet. We still have a lot of activities going on. And sometimes there's variances and decisions made after like today's date that could impact the budget. So it's a guesstimate for sure, but we try to do our best to consider everything. By law, it has to be approved at the year end before June 30th, and this was our last meeting. So unfortunately for so many transactions this time, but there was just a lot going on this year. Believe me, it wore us out figuring it all out.
I bet. All right, thank you very much. And
You're welcome.
if anybody else have any questions, or I would move to approve the budget amendments as presented.
I'll second.
So I have a motion from Mr. Clem and a second from Ms. Guy to accept the amendments, the budget amendments as presented by Ms. Woodruff and Mrs. Grimes. All in favor? Any more conversation? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
Aye.
So that's 7-4, 0 abstaining, 0 against. Motion passes. Thank you, Financial Department. All right, moving on the agenda. Item D, consideration of reporting continuing education credit. Would that be Mrs. Duarte? That's tag, I'm it. Okay,
Yes,
so
ma'am. That's just to read those hours, those total
read it.
hours into the board
I get to read them?
for record. Yes, ma'am.
And where would those hours be? In the,
Let me give you mine.
It's in the agenda, Ms. Woods.
It's page 109.
okay, I have it right here. So
Okay.
sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so 2019 board training and continuing education credit per board member. We have Mr. Clem. Can I just do the total, or do I have to do tier 1 hours at 3, tier 2 at 3, tier 3 at 26.75? He completed student achievement SB 1566 for a total of 32.75 hours. Okay, so
Turn their TV
So
off.
somebody needs to mute. Okay. And Mr. Poppy has tier 1, 5 hours, tier 2, 3 hours, tier 3, 36, completed SB 1566 student achievement for tier 4 for a total of 44 hours.
Overachiever.
Mr. Augustine Laredo is next at tier 1, 3 hours, tier 2, 3 hours, tier 3, 15.5 hours. He has completed tier 4 student achievement SB 1566 for a total of 21.5 hours. And Tiffany Guy has 4 tier 1 hours, 3 tier 2 hours, tier 3 hours, total 22. And tier 4 student achievement SB 1566 is completed for a total of 29.0 total hours. Mr. Shea Cotter has 3.0 tier 1 hours, 3.0 tier 2, 9.25 tier 3 hours, has completed Tier 4 hours on Student Achievement SB 1566 for a total of 15.25 hours. Mr. Howard Sampson has 3 Tier 1 hours, 3 Tier 2 hours, and 6 Tier 3 hours. He has completed Tier 4 Student Achievement SB 1566 for a total of 12 hours. Jessica Woods has 3 Tier 1 hours, 3 Tier 2 hours, 12.25 Tier 3 hours, and completed Tier 4 Student Achievement SB 1566 for a total of 18.25 hours. Do I need to read what Tier 1, 2, 3, and 4? Okay, perfect. As of June 15th, 2020, continuing education hours of the GCC ISD Board. Moving on to agenda item E, future board agenda items, board trainings and board meetings. E1 is future board agenda items. Do we have any requests for future board agenda items at this time?
Ms. Woods, I had asked for the for an update on what we were doing as far as plans for coming back from COVID, as far as what are we doing for the students, the teachers, our employees.
I agree. I think that we need to have a presentation of what those plans, there's surely multiple options, multiple possibilities that we face in August, and how those will shake out for teachers, classrooms, if we're still limited to
I was hoping
capacity.
I was hoping to get it tonight. Can we get that for next meeting?
We can do that, or I can get it to you in a weekly update this week. Have PowerPoints ready and prepared. We're working on the tweaking today. The main problem is we still have unknowns, as everyone does. We have options. If we're at 50%, this is what we'll do. 75%, this is what we'll do. So have those in the form of a PowerPoint presentation ready to present.
You're mute, Dr. O'Brien. And but in addition to that, I think it would be good to go over that as a superintendent's report in the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
But I think that we would like to see some of the preliminary options that are being, if you could send those out in your updates so that we will have an idea of what to expect and be a little clearer on what the future looks like for classrooms and online instruction.
What did we do about the diversity training that we had talked about, like 2 or 3 months, every month? Are we still trying to put a board? Or
Dr. Dorte, are you on there? We had Dr. Caldwell last year. We have him planned to come back. Is that correct?
Dr. O'Brien, I don't believe Ms. Duarte is on. I do know that we did discuss this at our last meeting as being a future board agenda item and talked about some potential workshops for.
I'm sorry, I'm here. My mute wouldn't stop.
You were stuck on mute.
I was stuck on mute. There was something behind that. So yes,
did you hear the question?
Yes, I did. So yes, we worked with Dr. Cleveland. I have not scheduled anything for the board yet. I know I shared the name with the board, and my understanding was you guys wanted to maybe look at his background, but I would be happy to work with him and have him come in and do a workshop for us.
Okay, and then I think, Mr. Sampson, were you wanting some update too on what the diversity training looked like for the district as well? How that's rolling out through principals and down to staff?
Right, yeah. Also, with that diversity training, I'm not sure as Dr. Duarte, was that for administrators also, or do we need to have one with like Mr. O'Brien's cabinet with the boards so we can kind of all get on the same page?
So we did it with all of the principals and the curriculum and instruction team. So yes, we absolutely could set it up for both board and council.
Okay.
We've also rolled it out to all staff on campuses.
Okay.
All staff, all departments.
Right.
So are you comfortable with me contacting Dr. Cleveland?
Yes, if he's qualified to do this, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and he's just not somebody that thinks they know about it, but can really help us with some of the things we need to learn.
Yeah, that's his area of research. That's the program he's over at Kentucky State University.
Kentucky State University?
Yes.
Okay.
It's Dr. Roger Cleveland.
Roger Cleveland. You write his name down.
So we need to schedule that sooner rather than later.
Later, before school starts.
Yes, for sure.
I'll email him tonight, and then I'll get some available dates to Dr. O'Brien and Noemi.
And Dr. Duarte, I think we're scheduled to, our next meeting is going live, or is it the second one in July? July 6th will be face-to-face, our next meeting, so that would be a preferable date, if not a follow-up meeting at his availability.
Okay.
Okay, Dr. Duarte?
Got it.
I had a question or kind of a request for information from Dr. Price. And it's basically, there's two things. I don't know if you're on here or not, but for future board, maybe a report on the TXSSC, our emergency operation plan. I know submission of that plan is required this week. In order,
They've extended it.
have they extended the deadline for that?
To November, due to
Okay.
COVID.
Okay. I know that plan is not something that's completely shared publicly, for obvious reasons, but is there a possible time for future board training or workshop where we could be apprised of what that plan entails?
Most definitely.
Okay, I know you guys have worked really hard with your committee this past year, and it would be, I think, beneficial to the board to see the fruits of that labor. Also, future agenda item, I would like, as part of our plan that that Mr. Laredo asked for, the plan for going back to school in the fall, classrooms, et cetera. I would like to see some plan that you have in the works for classroom sanitation. What are our procedures, custodial, on the campuses for day-to-day with students and teachers and staff on campus? And is it something that we should be looking at for the near future, that we have to expand that service to mitigate any possible increased risks that are going to come at us in the fall?
Okey-doke.
So future board agenda items for those two things, if possible, and perhaps it could be well, I don't guess the emergency operation plan could be a superintendent's report, because that has to remain somewhat private. Yeah. Okay. Are there any other items that we want to see on future agendas at this time? How about board trainings? I know we have the diversity training that we're setting up. Are there any updates on the online TASB training?
Yes, ma'am. SLI is going to be virtual.
Mm-hmm.
You have, you're able to earn 11 hours of credit, and
Is that still the 24th of June
Through the 26th.
through the 26th? Okay, and do we need to get with you to get us registered?
I will have taken care of the registration. You do not have to make selections of the sessions.
Okay, so just attend the ones as
Yes.
you
And I will
can.
forward you the agenda for the sessions.
All right, so that's June 24th through the 26th for SLI virtual training.
Yes.
Are there any other trainings coming up that we need to be involved in, aware of? Nope. Okay, so at this time, future board meetings, our next meeting is July the 6th, live face-to-face here in the boardroom. And at that time, we'll discuss workshop dates. Or if you get some dates from Dr. Duarte before that time that we can look at for diversity training, then perhaps we can schedule a workshop for that in mid-July sometime.
Ms. Woods,
Mm-hmm.
we do have the board workshop on this Wednesday.
Yes, okay. I didn't forget. I did, but I didn't. It's on my calendar. All right, so yes, we are meeting on Wednesday the 17th. Here is at 6 p.m. as well. And any who prefer to WebEx in will have that availability as well. All right, so we will move to agenda item F, which is our closed meeting. At this time, 8 p.m., we will recess into closed meeting pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code Section 551.071, 072, 073, 074, 075, 076, 082, 083, 084, and 087. No action will be taken while the board is in closed meeting. Session ends at 8 p.m. Okay, the time is now 9:20 and we will reconvene into open session. No action was taken by the board while in closed session.
Yeah.
We will move to agenda item H, consideration of personnel. Dr. O'Brien.
Yes, wanted to, am I good? Administration recommends consideration of personnel action with the 7 elections as presented.
Do I have a motion on agenda item H1 approving elections as presented?
Move for approval.
A second.
Move for approval by Mr. Laredo, a second by Mr. Cotter. Any discussion or questions about this item? No. All in favor of this approval of elections, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to do both.
I did both.
Awesome. 7-4, that would be then any against? No, 0. Any abstentions? No, 0. Motion passes. Number 2.
Administration recommends accepting the resignations as presented.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Laredo and a second by Mrs. Guy to accept resignations as presented by the administration. All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye, or do both.
Aye.
Shay, that's your left hand.
Yeah. Well, with my left too.
Oh my goodness.
My right hand is on my mouth.
Okay, so we have 7 for the motion. That would be 0 against and 0 abstentions. Motion passes. Number 3.
Number 3, consideration of personnel. Just wanted to notify the board of the 19 elections that we hired in between meetings. And the next item is consideration of administration personnel. We have 3 ARD facilitators that we're recommending at this time. Erica Leal, Darlene Malco, and Janika Rice.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Laredo and a second by Mrs. Guy to accept ARD facilitators as presented.
One question.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Mr.
Dar-
Sampson?
You said Darlene Malco or Malvo or what?
Malco.
Malveux or MALC?
CO.
CO.
Oh, okay. That's a different. Okay,
Yeah,
I'm good.
Any further questions? All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
I have 7-4. That would be 0 against and 0 abstentions. Motion passes as presented.
And next, we have consideration of administrative personnel, including licensed specialist in school psychology, Maricel Velez Elgin.
I'll move to approve.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy.
A second.
I have a second by Mr. Poppy.
Okay.
Any questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye.
Aye.
I have 7-4. That would be 0 against and 0 abstentions. Motion passes.
We have administrative personnel continued, and assistant principal at Hopper Primary, Perla Olmos, assistant principal at Highlands Elementary, James Husband, assistant principal at Crockett Elementary, Christina Castillo, assistant principal at Lamar Elementary, Mark Gorina.
Move for approval.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Laredo and a second by Mrs. Guy. Any questions or comments about elementary assistant principals? All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye. I have any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I have 6-4, 0 opposed, and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
We have administrative recommendations for assistant principal at Goose Creek Memorial High School, Andrew Callis Jr., and assistant principal at Goose Creek Memorial High School, Shauna Prentice.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mr. Cotter and a second by Mrs. Guy for secondary assistant principals. Is there any question or conversation? Comment? No. All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye. Any opposed? Any abstention?
Abstain.
I have 6-4, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
And finally, consideration of administrative personnel, coordinator of Healthy Community Schools. We're recommending Amanda Kenning.
I'll move to approve.
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Guy.
I have a motion by Mrs. Guy and a second by Mr. Laredo. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please raise your right hand or say aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
I have 6-4, 0 against, and 1 abstention. Motion passes.
And one final administrative thought is a reassignment of administration personnel. We have an assistant principal moving to Highlands Elementary School, from Highlands Elementary School to Asheville Smith, Jessica Sanchez.
Thank you.
Do we need to take action on that, or was that
Not
just?
required, not required,
Okay.
just notification.
All right. Well, at this time, we have completed agenda and reached item number 7, which is adjournment. The time is 9:26 p.m.
All night.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.